morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe has moved from being a pariah state to a mafia state. The Zanu PF thugs and their looters, zviganandas, as they've been often referred to in Zimbabwean circles, have become so powerful, they've completely corrupted the nation's various institutions, including the opposition, such that the people themselves have no say in the governance of this country. None. They're so powerful that they have captured the entire nation. And they're so powerful, wresting power from them is not going to be easy. Here is Instability explaining the true nature of state capture in Zimbabwe.
His US 360 million treasury bill was not converted to US dollars in February of 2019. He then injected this treasury bill into the local market in June and July of 2019, causing the local currency to literally collapse. The Reserve Bank was forced to act. Briefly, his accounts were frozen, but the net result was that suddenly 360 million US dollars was flooded on the local market and the local currency collapsed. Any watcher of the economy, including the IMF, were frightened by that development. So if you have got this individual, this powerful cartel that can destroy the currency within a single day, then the country can be held ransom at any time, which is why it is crazy to think that this criminal actually has ambitions to be the next president of the Republic of Zimbabwe. It can't happen and shouldn't be allowed to happen. I feel pity for Zanu PF. Zanu PF is being reduced to a commodity that can be bought by a few trinkets, a few motor vehicles, a few GD6s. What kind of a country have we become? Ebed Tepo is standing in his grave. Joshua Nkabukonkomo is standing in his grave. Dumiso Dabengwa is standing in his grave. The thousands of liberators that died in Chimoyo, Nyadzonya are standing in their graves. For if they knew that the country and their political party was open to the highest bidder, they wouldn't have gone to war. They wouldn't have gone to war. So it's a shame. Shame on Zanu PF. Shame on Zanu PF. Shame on everyone in Zanu PF that you allow yourself to be reduced to a commodity with use value and exchange value. Which brings me to the attempts to amend the constitution. You cannot amend the constitution to remove two limits without two referendums. One to actually deal with the term limits that are provided for in terms of Section 328. And the second referendum to make sure that when the amendments are made, they benefit you. So Zanu PF can't make these amendments without these two referendums. Fortunately, the majority of people in Zanu PF, as a matter of fact, are opposed to this amendment. Fortunately, 99% of Zimbabweans are opposed to this amendment.
Let's deal with the first issue there. That Zimbabwe is now a captured state. It is a captured state. And what Tendai was showing there is that the cartels are now so powerful that they can disrupt the whole nation's economy if they so wish. The truth of the matter is, this, we have seen it happen, and it has happened. If you look at the 2023 elections, there is no doubt that that election was flawed. Zanu PF, Mnangagwa specifically, was able to spend a staggering $5 billion in buying the votes, corrupting various officials to make sure that he wins the elections. It started with the passing in of these hundreds of thousands of crowd for hire from one rally to another, and buying them this Sapatina Sapatina chicken and chips and a drink. To buying motorcycles for all the headmen and twin cab trucks for all the chiefs. We have all become Zanu PF political commissars in all but name. And this has gone up all the way to buying cars and giving farms to church leaders who have helped the regime get the necessary votes. And as we go on that ladder, when we get to the members of parliament and senators, the bribe was given a new name. It was called a housing loan. Everybody knew that was just another name for a bribe. The MPs and senators got $40,000 housing loan. And it was graded up so that the judges got a staggering $40,000. Sorry, the judges got $400,000, and ministers $500,000. Add it all up, must have been at least $5 billion spent in the 2023 elections. Where was Mnangagwa getting the money from? Zviganandas. It was his share of what he has allowed the looters to do. Corruption was bad during Mugabe's time, but it has gone into overdrive in Mnangagwa's rule. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe can pretend what they like, not to see it, but that is the truth. I'd like to go on to the last bit that Tendai Biti was talking about there. Zimbabwe had many golden opportunities to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. That is at the heart of our political reality. The best chance to implement the democratic reforms and dismantle the Zanu PF dictatorship was during the GNU. Tendai BT was a minister, the finance minister. As you can see from that title there, former finance minister in the GNU. He was an MDC, finance minister. The primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. Not even one token reform was implemented. Not even one. Mugabe bribed the MDC leaders with the trappings of high office, and they completely forgot about implementing reforms. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. And ever since the GNU debacle, MDC CCC leaders have participated in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they are giving Zanu PF legitimacy. That they have out of corruption. They were content to have their share of the spoils of power, and so they continued participating. In this video, Tendai BT finishes with the issue of Mnangagwa now trying to extend his stay in power by a further beyond 2028. And Tendai BT's answer to that is they are going to take on Mnangagwa and Zanu PF. They will not win the referendum. This whole argument is idiotic, to say the very least. What people must understand is that the opposition has always come up with excuses to justify why they keep on participating in flawed elections. Greed. And they've tried to justify their greed by telling the people that they would win these rigged processes. As we know, in 2023, Chamisa insisted that he was going to win the 2023 elections. CCC was going to win big because I have plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. And yet, when the results came, in fact, the day after the election, he was the one who started complaining that Zanu PF had rigged the elections. Here he is maintaining that he was going to win the election and he was preparing his cabinet.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifoiri. Plan yaMwari haifoiri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
The truth is, he had lied to his people that he had plugged the vote-rigging loopholes. He had lied to con them to participate in flawed elections out of greed. Pure and simple. There are very few occasions when he has been taken to task on his lying. But here is one of them.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye conman, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Sangana na Trump akatibvunza naye conman, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Kasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye conman, mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
The truth of the matter is, Tendai BT and all the other Triple C leaders, senior leaders like David Coulthard, were part of this whole lying scheme. They wanted to participate in 2023 elections, and they knew Chamisa was lying about plugging the vote-rigging loopholes to con people to participate because they wanted their share of the spoils of power. Mnangagwa has known that as long as he offers the opposition attractive packages in terms of the bribes, they will participate in these flawed elections no matter what. This is at the heart of our problem. Tendai BT is now trying to justify why he and his friends want to participate in 2028. First, they want to pretend that they are going to participate to stop Mnangagwa tampering with the constitution. I present to you a case. Which is easier for Mnangagwa to rig, the referendum or the 2028 elections? And clearly, the answer is the referendum. Because in a referendum, there is no such thing as you need a verified voters roll. There will be no outsiders to supervise that process. And the referendum could be won on a 50% plus one. No one would be able to, outside Zimbabwe, would be able to see whether that process was credible. We already know that Mnangagwa rigged 2023 elections. SADC and the AU condemned the 2023 elections, and they said so in their report. We are going into this referendum without even one single democratic reform implemented. What's there to stop him rigging the referendum? Nothing. Whereas if we force him to go into the 2028 elections, we can expect SADC and the AU to come in and supervise that process. So our choice of way to confront Zanu PF has got to be strategic and rational. We don't want to engage him in the referendum. Because if you participate in the referendum and you lose it, it will be impossible for you to say, oh, we can't participate in the 2028 elections. Because the question will be, well, if you participated in the referendum with no reforms implemented, why shouldn't you participate in the 2028 elections without even one reform implemented? So we will find ourselves being dragged into 2028 elections with no reforms implemented, all because of opposition greed. I think the people of Zimbabwe must make up their minds. They should stop listening to the opposition, the likes of Tendai Biti, Nelson Chamisa, and so forth, and make up your own mind. And the simple decision here is, do you really want to keep on participating in flawed elections that you know are flawed? And you also know that if you participate, you give the process legitimacy. After 45 years of rigged elections, to keep on participating in flawed, rigged elections in the hope that this time the opposition would win is insanity. I think the people of Zimbabwe should wake up. They should tell Chamisa, Tendai Biti and company that we are not interested in participating in a flawed process, be it in the referendum or in the 2028 elections. If people had made that stand in 2023, SADC would have not only produced a damning report of the election process, which they did, but they would have gone one step further and denied Zanu PF legitimacy. But they did not, because Nelson Chamisa conned his followers to participate in those flawed elections. And 2 million of them participated. And the few CCC leaders, the likes of Fazai Mayere, David Coulthard, Gift Ostalos Siziva, James Timber, etc., who participated in those flawed elections and actually win, they went on to take up their seats, even after SADC had said the process was flawed. They argue that they spent their own money. The truth of the matter is, what they were saying is, we can't resist what Mnangagwa is offering as a bribe for participating. Mnangagwa knows that. And come 2028, he will only increase the bribe for the opposition. They know that, and they'll be fighting for their share of the spoils of power. The real loser is the ordinary people. Because another rigged election will only drag us deeper and deeper into this economic and political mess. I go back to the original session. Zimbabwe is a mafia state. Zanu PF and Zviganandas have all but captured this nation. Institutions, all the key individuals. We have no say in the governance of the country. We did not have a say in the governance on who was to rule the country in 2023, because Mnangagwa was able to bribe and buy all the votes that he wanted. He was able to buy the opposition to make sure that they participated, no matter how flawed the process gets. We can end this. And all we need to do is tell ourselves that this is madness. Continuing to participate in a flawed election is madness. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.